Coach McGraw, we've made it all the way to episode 10, I believe, of your very own podcast, Better Than I Found It. It is Friday, the 25th of September. We are pre-recording this episode as we will be traveling. Are you excited about getting on the road finally?
I think as our guest today said, March 12th was the day the music died in college golf. We haven't been doing anything since the 12th of March. So the anticipation for this day when we'll actually travel to a college golf tournament has been great. I'm thankful that other schools have already started and played some tournaments, so it's not unprecedented. We're excited to get going again, and to have all Big 12 teams at Colonial this next week will be amazing.
Yep. And so it's our goal with this podcast to have a new episode each week for the foreseeable future to provide some insight and fun stories and updates here and there. And so we're pre-recording this to where this will be released while we're on the road. And so just to shed a little bit of light on what our plans are, it's Friday today. We are driving up Sunday to Colonial in Fort Worth, which is about an hour and a half drive for us. We'll be playing a practice round on Sunday, then 36 holes Monday, 18 Tuesday. That will be the first tournament. It's only Big 12 teams. We will stay the night in Fort Worth, get COVID tested on Wednesday morning in Fort Worth. All 10 teams drive to Houston Oaks for the Big 12 match play tournament. We'll play there. Really cool, fun tournament, all match play. Head back to Waco. So we'll spend about 8 days on the road. What do you expect from our team, coach, and what are you looking forward to with seeing our guys play?
Well, a couple of things come to mind when you ask that question. One, we've been playing very well here in Waco, so we have a lot of synergy, lots of low scores, tons of rounds in the mid to low 60s even. So we're playing well, so that gives you a great amount of anticipation. It's always better to be playing well when you head to a tournament than to be playing poorly, so that's exciting. Number two, we're going to go play a championship golf course. They've hosted a U.S. Open. They've hosted the Colonial tournament since 1946. They've hosted a women's U.S. Open. It's just really an amazing place. Colonial is a beautiful, beautiful golf course that if you get a little bit of breeze, really a challenging golf course too. So it's always great when you can go play a championship golf course. So that's the second thing I'm excited about. And the third thing I'm excited about is this team that we're taking has never been together in this form as it is, because we have a brand new freshman on the team. So it's going to be it's a new season. So we're starting a brand new season. The anticipation is very, very high for myself, for you, and certainly for all our players.
Yeah, and if you want to follow, you can obviously find it on golfstat.com. There will be live scoring at the Colonial Collegiate Invitational and also the Big 12 Match Play Tournament. You can follow our team's social media accounts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's Baylor Men's Golf. So that's where you can stay up to date on us next week. And then when we come back, we'll have a new episode in the following week. But hopefully when you look at the golf stat, you'll see some really low scores and hopefully a round or two that could potentially fight for getting into Coach McGraw's new top 5 all-time rounds. So that's what we're transitioning to right now. We've covered 2 rounds, Coach, of the best rounds you've ever seen in college golf. Number 5, Charles Howell with that 63 as part of the NCAA title. And then last week, you uncovered Morgan Hoffman's 62 at Southern Highlands in Las Vegas. This week, we're in the number 3 slot. What do you have for us this week?
Well, what I have for you is a player I did not coach, actually. But I did watch the entire round. And it was Bryce Mulder shooting 12 under par 60 in the 2000. It was fall of 2000 in the Palmetto Dunes Collegiate. That's an impressive score just in and of itself. A 60, that's 12 under par. It's just frankly an amazing round of golf, and I witnessed every bit of it. He entered the final round trailing an OSU golfer that I was going to be walking with that day, Anders Holtman. And Anders had shot 66 and was leading by 3 shots. So Bryce entered the round trailing by 3 shots, and I look back on it and he shot 60. So you think, well, okay, Bryce won the golf tournament. That's not what happened. Anders actually didn't protect his lead. He wasn't playing safe. He went out and shot 9 under par 63. Pardon me. He was leading by 4 shots. He shot 9 under par 63 and won by a shot over Bryce Mulder. But
wow.
to be trailing by 4 anyway, and to be watching a guy on his way to a 9 under par round, Bryce had to be thinking, I've got to put the foot on the gas pedal and go, because this guy's not letting up. And Bryce was an amazing player, one of the four-time first-team All-Americans in collegiate golf history. He played at Georgia Tech, great player. He won on the PGA Tour. I don't believe Bryce is playing anymore, but that 60, that stands out as one of the great rounds I've seen, especially since he was watching a 63 that he was trailing of that player. So,
and if I'm right, that's still the lowest score in NCAA play in a collegiate tournament still. There's nobody that's broken 60 yet.
They have not. So that's still the lowest, and it's been tied 2 or 3 times, but nobody's beaten it.
Well, that's cool. You've definitely seen a lot of good golf. When is that first round in the 50s coming, Coach, in college golf?
I would be shocked if it wasn't this year. The PGA Tour is shooting lower numbers than they've ever shot. Why shouldn't college golf? And the truth is, there's no reason it can't be done. I guess I just believe it will, and I think it'll happen this year. There's a lot of good scoring in the game of golf right now.
All right, you heard it there first, September 25th. We can rewind the podcast when that somebody breaks 60 out there this year. So
gonna happen.
Coach, we got a guest on this week. We know him very well, both of us. Pretty special to both of us. Ryan Blagg, you just moved up to Louisville, and you guys had 6 years together, and they were some good years for you.
They were good years for me, and I had known Ryan since he was a sophomore in high school. He was your assistant coach for 2 years, and he was my assistant coach for 6 years. And I think what people are going to find out today is Ryan has an amazing sense of humor. He's really, really smart, and he's actually a very interesting human being, very interesting. And it's one thing to get hired at a Power 5 conference school, as he has been at Louisville, but it's quite another to get hired during the middle of a pandemic, and then to have to kind of deal with all of the issues that have come along with that. So he'll talk a little bit about that today. He's going to talk about our time together and talk about some of his favorite moments as a Baylor golfer, and maybe a couple low moments too as a coach that weren't his finest hour. But he's a very interesting guy to listen to. I enjoyed it every day for 6 years, and our listeners will get to enjoy it for about an hour today.
Yeah, he's the man. We were in there recording early, so we appreciate Ryan Blagg coming on. Let's say hello to him.
Ryan Blagg, good morning. How are you doing today?
Hey, Coach McGraw, how are you?
I'm doing well. Just sitting here in Waco, Texas, loving life, and just, was thinking about, I've got to catch Baylor people up on what Ryan Blagg is up to, and really the world of college golf. So I thought it'd be great to bring you onto the podcast this morning to do that and maybe reminisce just a little bit.
Sounds good. Let's get it started.
All right, let's do that. It's funny because most people wouldn't know this, but you and I have known each other for a long time. Your high school golf coach, Todd Selders, happened to be my college roommate at Central Oklahoma. So, and he was also, wasn't he the junior golf director at Walnut Creek where you grew up?
He was. So Todd Selders, I first met him when I might have been 10 years old. My memory's not as quite as good as yours, but he definitely was. He was an assistant pro, and I think he was a junior golf director at our country club at Walnut Creek Country Club in Mansfield, Texas. And then shortly thereafter, he became the head golf coach at Mansfield High School.
Yeah, and since he and I had a past and played on the college golf team together, he decided to bring his team up. I think we did it a couple of years probably with plans to do it forever, and it never happened. But because he went to OU and I went to Oklahoma State. But he did bring you guys up. So I met you when you were in high school, and you guys had a really good team. You almost won a state high school championship, didn't you? You want to talk about that, or is that too painful?
Well, I kind of feel like you're bringing that up because you won 34 of them in a row or whatever it was. But like I always tell you, the competition in Oklahoma is not quite as much as it is in Texas. But yeah, we ended up finishing second my junior year and third my senior year. And that was hard to take. Our number one player my junior year, which wasn't me. I think I was 3-man on that team. My number one player had won every golf tournament that spring, which is incredible to do in Texas golf. He'd won 6 in a row. He gets the state championship. His stepfather on the putting green starts messing with his putting stroke. He'd shoot 78, 79. We lose by 4. So I may just blame it on him right now. I don't know.
Well, blame it on his stepfather. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, I got you. Well, you guys did have a great team, and I remember Todd was Texas high school coach of the year that year, and there was a lot of really good things coming out of that, and a bunch of guys played D1 golf. You didn't start as a D1 golfer. You went to Tyler Community College, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So on that team, all 5 ended up playing D1 golf. One went to OU, one went to University of Texas, one went to Sam Houston State, and then we had 2 go to junior college. One started at Weatherford Junior College and then played at UTA. And then I started at Tyler Junior College and then went to University of Arkansas.
Pretty rare when an entire 5-man squad would play D1 golf. That's pretty rare.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, maybe it's getting more common, like Austin Westlake. I mean, they seem like they're going to do it. But, yeah, it is really rare.
Yeah. Well, but you ended up playing for a coach that became a part of both of our lives eventually. Tell me about him.
Yeah. So when I was a senior in high school, I was a good golfer, but I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And I was getting recruited by mid-majors, and I was probably just a little cocky, arrogant kid that thought he was really good. And I wanted to play at Baylor. I wanted to play at Louisville. I wanted to play at Arkansas, and I wasn't getting recruited by those schools. And so Coach Greg Priest was at Tyler Junior College, and he called me. And I remember exactly the phone call we had was he wanted me to come out there, and they'd won 4 national championships in a row. And I just told him, no, I'm not going to play junior college golf. I'm going to play D1 golf. Well, he kept calling. He kept being persistent. He kept calling. I think he called 4 times, and finally he convinced me, because I wasn't getting recruited, to go out there and take a look. And on that visit, he told me that they've won 4 in a row. Come out here, we'll win another one. You can go anywhere you want to go. And it worked. He was exactly right. That's exactly what happened. We won another one. I finished 6th of national championship. I was an All-American, and I ended up getting recruited by some D1 schools, and I chose University of Arkansas.
That's great. I mean, that's a good story in my opinion, because a lot of kids have it dead set in their mind. I have to go to D1 and it has to be a Power 5 school. And that's what you were thinking in 1997. But the truth is you can get where you want to go on a different route. So that's good that Greg was so persistent. Another good lesson, coaches need to be very persistent. So you ended up playing at Arkansas for 2 different coaches, Bill Woodley and Mike Ketchum. Yeah,
that's right. So I had a kind of a different college coaching playing experience, because I played for 3 different coaches, and all of them were very, very different. And it's kind of funny how Greg Priest comes back into the story a little later. But yeah, so playing for him for 1 year was great. Played for Woodley for 3 years, because I actually redshirted there, and then Mike Ketchum my senior year.
Okay. And so you have a unique perspective, having played for 3 college golf coaches, and you, as you said, all of them were completely different. I think when you look at college golf, when a kid comes into college, I mean, he's got a head coach there and an assistant coach. Most of the time, they're going to be very different. So you're going to get a good mix, and you actually had a good mix of 3 different guys there. So.
Yeah, and I tell you, it helped me a lot, I think, to help me become a coach, because I learned a lot of good things from those guys. And I think I learned a lot of things that didn't work as well, maybe what not to do and what to do at the same time. And I think you and I both know, as we go through life, every day we kind of see examples of things that, man, I want to try that. I think that's a great idea, or this is probably not such a good thing to do.
Again, a great life lesson, because most people think, well, he's the head coach, and here I am a player, or I'm an assistant coach, and he's got all the answers. Well, sometimes his answers don't work. Sometimes they're archaic, or they don't work with me as a player, or whatever. So you learned a good lesson right there. But okay, so you finished college golf, and obviously you wanted to turn pro. Tell me about your professional experience, because that lasted, what, 6, 7, 8 years?
Yeah, about 6, 7 years. And again, I think this has been my story of my whole career, my whole life of playing golf. I probably shouldn't have turned pro. I probably wasn't good enough to turn pro. But I I really wanted to, and I ran into some sponsors that would help me. And I actually got a lot better once I turned pro after a year out there. So you had to, it was survive or you couldn't play anymore. And so I started learning how to actually play the game. And because in college, I don't think I unfortunately really knew and really learned what I needed to learn to play proper golf and how to manage myself around the golf course. But you had to out of necessity out there. And I learned from a lot of mini tour players out there I just watched what they did and tried to figure out why they were successful and do the same thing. And there's a lot of good mini tour players at the time. There is right now too. And I got going and I started playing pretty well, but I never ever, I never got status on the PGA Tour. I never got status on the Korn Ferry Tour. I played in some of those events, obviously, and Monday qualified and getting and playing some of those. But, went to Q school 5 times, got to second stage 3 of those times, missed going to final stage by a shot 1 time. So probably a lackluster professional career, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I learned so much about golf and about myself during those 6 years.
All right, 2 things I want to ask you about that, because you once told me that you shanked a golf shot, a full shot, almost every tournament you ever played. Now, is that true?
That seems a little exaggerated, but I did have a summer when I was probably playing my best golf, and I was living in the heel. And every once in a while, I'd say at least once a tournament, like you said, for that summer, I shanked a full shot. I'm not talking a pitching wedge. I'm talking a full 6-iron. And I was playing my best golf at the time, and I would just kind of move with it. And I think, luckily, most of those shanks stayed out of trouble, and I made a par on several of them. It's sad that that's what I was going through, but I played great golf through that stretch.
Well, Ben Hogan lived in the heel too. He did just fine. Between you and Ben Hogan, you've won 9 majors. So you've been very good in the heel.
Yeah, I got to thank Ben for those 9. That's good.
Hey, the other thing I want to ask you is about the money games in the DFW area, because I've got to believe that you honed your skills, your competitive skills, your nerves and all that on those. And you also met a pretty famous quarterback through that. So tell me about playing money games when you were at home in Dallas.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's only so many miniature events, right? And so I'm practicing, I'm playing, and I found out the best way to get better is to have a little pressure on me and put some money on the line, even when we're not in tournaments. And so the Dallas-Fort Worth area has always been home to a lot of PGA Tour professionals, mini tour professionals, college players. There's a lot of golf in that area, and there's a lot of great golf courses in that area. And, I got to know a guy named Mark Walker from watching him play on the mini tours, and he's still playing on the mini tours. This guy is, I would think he's probably won the most money of anybody ever on the mini tour circuit. He continually led the money list. If not, he finished 2nd or 3rd on every mini tour he played on. And he was a good story because he didn't play college golf. He was self-taught, and if you watched him hit a ball on a range, you think, this guy's not any good. And turns out he's really good, and he won all the time. And so I got to know him. We became good friends, and he knew everybody in the area. He knew all the pros. He was kind of a vagabond in the sense that he just he would jump from golf course to golf course and play around. And so he had the money games. And so we would hang out, and I started going around on money games with him, and he became good friends with, you mentioned Tony Romo. And I was always a huge Dallas Cowboys fan growing up in Dallas-Fort Worth, back when they actually were winning Super Bowls in 92, 93, and 95. Those were in my high school years, and I loved the Dallas Cowboys, and I still do to this day. It's just a little harder to love them right now. But so Tony, everybody knows his story, right? He was an undrafted free agent. He was a golfer, and then he became this superstar quarterback for the Cowboys. And at that time was about when he got named to be the starting quarterback, maybe his 2nd year in. Mark met him, and Tony in his spare time would play golf, and especially in the off season, he would play golf. That would be the summers, right? And really early spring before they hit training camp. And so Tony would go throw at practices in the morning, and then he would meet us at whatever golf course around the Metroplex at about noon or 1 o'clock. And the beauty part about that is we could get on almost anywhere as long as he was with us, right?
He was your meal ticket.
Oh, yeah. Call Dallas National, call wherever. Oh, yeah, come out. Where we got Tony, we're coming out. And so we'd usually have about 2 groups in play. And I learned early on, I remember how excited I was just to kind of, hey, I'm playing golf with Tony Romo today. And Tony said, let's play. Hey, let's play money. Let's play one-on-one match. Do you want to match with me? And I was like, okay. And I knew he was a good golfer. Didn't really know how good, but he said he needs 4 shots. And I thought, I don't know how good he is, but I'm thinking he's a football player. Surely I can handle this, and I'm not going to tell him no, right? So we play, and I don't remember exactly what I shot. All I remember is I lost $160 to him that day, and I just thought, this guy is making millions, and I'm as broke as it gets, and I'm handing him $160. This just doesn't seem right to me. So from then on, I quickly started shutting down the shots to where it was almost, 1 shot aside at most, because the guy, by no means should I have been losing to him, but he could shoot even par at any given day. And so if you're giving him 4, 4 under's you can't do that every day, especially when you're not, I wasn't exactly killing it at the time. I was shooting 1 or 2 under, and that's just not going to cut it. So that was a wake up call for me. That 1, I don't want to hand a couple $100 to a guy that's making millions, and 2, I probably ought to get a little bit better.
Well, that leads really me to my next question, because after 6 or 7 years of eking out a living, if you will, or maybe not even really making a living, I did that. It only took me 3 years to figure it out. So I'm twice as smart as you are.
That's right.
But it's like you come home from these trips and there's no money in your pockets. You kind of have to think, maybe I'm not a pro golfer anymore. Maybe I need to do something else. Tell me about that. When did that happen?
I remember the day that happened.
Wow.
I remember my last, it's not my last professional event, but it was really the last. I thought it was going to be my last professional event. I played 2 more after that, but I remember walking down 18 and I was thinking, I'm just not good enough, is what I was thinking. I haven't been good enough, and I'm not going to be able to do this for a living. And that was, I'm not going to lie to you, I had tears in my eyes. It was hard, because I've wanted to do that my whole life. And it was hard to accept. And before that, even though I may have thought that, or signs pointed that I wasn't going to be able to do this for a long time, when you finally realize that, like this is probably not what I should keep doing. 1, because I've done it for 6 years, and it's starting to be a financial problem. And I didn't want to be a 40-year-old playing mini tour golf, and God bless those guys that are doing it. But for me, I wanted to move on, meet my wife, have a family, get into another profession that involved golf, and coaching just happened to be it. But and so that was hard, because I was 28 years old at the time, and that was a hard pill to swallow. And so that day, though, I knew it. I was like, I think the sponsors are done, and I think I need to try to do something else.
Well, I think you're not the only one. I wasn't the only one. We're not unique. It's a very difficult profession to break into and succeed. And anytime you see somebody who's played pro golf for 35 years on the PGA Tour, I don't care what you think of his golf game. He's really, really good. And he's got great powers of resilience and perseverance and stick-to-itiveness, if you will. That's hard to do. And I'm not just talking about a guy like Jay Haas, who was always good and never lost his card. I'm talking about guys that were journeymen. Like, I'll give you an example. Jimmy Walker played for literally 12 years, kind of just toiling back and forth, and a little bit of status, not so much status, but he played nonstop. And then he won on the PGA Tour, and then he won a major. So it's not easy. So I appreciate what you went through, but it did lead you to coaching, which I think is great. It's great for our profession. So give me a little bit of help. Who helped you get into coaching, and then come to your time at Baylor, if you would.
Yeah, so once I got out of playing professional golf, like I said earlier, I knew right away that I wanted to do something with golf. And I learned early on, I just didn't think I wanted to get into the club pro business. And you know that well because of your dad. And, it's a lot of work, and so is coaching. It just depends on what kind of aspect you want to be involved with it. And I thought maybe I'd try to be a tour rep or something, but I just always had this thing of, I really thought it would be cool to be a college golf coach. And so, as you know now, college golf coaching is extremely hard to get into, and it was still hard at that time. That was back in 2009 or so when I was trying to first get in. And I remember the first phone interview I had was actually with Glenn Milliken. I don't think I ever told you this, but it was at New Mexico, which is funny. If I would have gone through there, it seems like every coach in the world's come out of New Mexico.
Great
But,
coaching tree right there. Great coaching tree.
yeah, but Glenn was awesome. I think he only took my call because I actually called Coach Priest saying, hey, how do I get into college coaching? Can you help me with this? And he didn't have an open position at the time, but Glenn did. And I interviewed with Glenn, and obviously it didn't go as well as I thought it went because he didn't give me an interview. But so I ended up bouncing around trying to do worked for a mini tour as a rules official and some other things that summer. And then finally, Coach Priest's job opened up at Baylor. And, obviously I played for him at Tyler Junior College, so I had a relationship with him. And I went down to interview with him, and I also interviewed with Houston Baptist, and I was fortunate enough to get an interview with Andrew Tank up at Iowa. And going through that, Coach Priest actually didn't hire me. He hired Austin Burke, and so that squashed that. And Coach Schuster, Dave Schuster at HBU, he offered me the job, and it was right before I was supposed to fly up to go see Coach Tank, and I just called Andrew and said, "Hey, I'm not going to make it. I've got a job already," and I want to do that job. I just figured, at the time I just started dating my now wife, and I just thought, just started this relationship. There's no way she's going to follow me to Iowa, but maybe to Houston, and so that's what happened. And luckily she did, and I got into Houston Baptist, and I spent 2 years there as the assistant for the men's and women's program down there before, as fate would have it, the job at Baylor opened up again, and Coach Priest hired me at Baylor, and I spent 8 years there.
Before we get to Baylor, I want to ask about your first day at Houston Baptist as a women's assistant coach. You have any idea what may have happened that day?
Yeah, I remember that because you bring it up all the time.
Well, it's because it's a learning experience for you. That's why I bring it up.
Yeah, so I was coaching men's and women's golf. That was part of the deal down there. And honestly, that was a great experience for me. 2 years of doing that, at a school like Houston Baptist, it's not a Power 5. You got to wear a lot of hats, and I was wearing a lot of them. And that was a great way to walk into it, honestly, because I was helping out with the weight room. I was helping out with academic advising. I was recruiting both men's and women's golf, and I was coaching both men's and women's golf. And it was a lot, but it was a great way to learn. And on that first day, like you mentioned, we had our team meeting, and we actually did our men's team meeting first and then the women's team meeting second. And we had a girl on the team, and she was a freshman, and team meeting starts and she's not there. And I'm thinking, how on earth is someone late to the first team meeting at 2:00 in the afternoon? I mean, I remember in college, I'm sure you were too, the first day of school, the first team meeting, how excited I was. I was so fired up for this team meeting. I want to know, what's coach going to say? Who are these other guys on my team? When are we going to have qualifying? When's the first tournament? I want to get started. I want some gear, right? And I was fired up. And apparently she wasn't as fired up, but because she wasn't there. And so that we went through the whole meeting. I mean, we're an hour into this sucker, and Coach Schuster tended to be long-winded like you, and so we were going way over time on our meeting.
Okay.
And so I finally get one of the girls to call her. She comes rushing to the meeting. She comes in there. She's already an hour late. And I pull her aside and I said, "Where were you? Like, what have you been doing?" And she says, "Oh, Coach, I went back to my room and took a nap." And, I zero coaching experience. I handled it very poorly, and I laid into her, and obviously that brought the waterworks, and then tears were flowing. And so right away I learned, one, probably shouldn't lay into them right away on the first day of school. Two, girls and guys are very different when you're coaching them. And I quickly apologized and moved on, and I'm sure she's doing great now, but you claim that it ruined her entire life because of my one problem in coaching there.
All I know is she's not on the LPGA Tour, so I think it started right at that moment.
You're right. She is not playing on the LPGA Tour.
But it was a good learning experience for you. Hey, I will say this. You got to Baylor, and you got to work for Greg Priest, the guy you had played for. So that's very similar to somebody we're going to talk to here in a minute that's going to start talking. Same story.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. And I was so excited. I mean, not that my time at HBU wasn't great, but I was so excited to get to a Power 5 school, closer to where I grew up. You know, Waco's only about an hour and 15 minutes from Dallas-Fort Worth, where I grew up. That was great for me and Lindsay, who were married at the time now, and get back closer to her family. And, you know, Baylor had been a really competitive golf team. And also I was excited to be back with Coach Priest, because I enjoyed my year with him at Tyler Junior College. And so it was an exciting time for me to get there.
So you worked 2 years for Greg, and then in June of 2014, you're on a plane going to North Carolina for an AJG event. Is that correct?
Yeah, the one at Sedgefield there is FootJoy.
The FootJoy. And well, you may as well tell the rest of this story, because you, unbeknownst to you, you knew I had been let go at Oklahoma State and then spent a year at Alabama, but you didn't know I was searching for jobs, and you didn't know Greg Priest was thinking about getting out of coaching.
Yeah, it was a complete shocker. I was about to take off from Love Field in Dallas, and he calls me and says, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I interviewed for this job." And I was thinking, where's he going? And it turned out to be the AD job out in Tyler, Texas, where he's from. And he said, "But, you know, I just interviewed for it, so I don't even know if I'd even want it if they offered it to me. So I just thought I'd let you know." So then I'm flying from Dallas to Houston. I'm in the air thinking about that, and then I land, and my phone rings, and it's Priest. And he says, "Hey, I decided to take that job." And now I'm going, holy smokes, you know, what's going on? You know, he says, "Yeah, I decided to take it. It's a good deal for me and my family." And so I get off the phone and I jump on this next flight, and I'm sitting there on this flight thinking, I know what happens most of the time whenever there's coaching change in college sports. And it probably means it's not good for me. And then I'm thinking, right now, my wife is 8 months pregnant. And I'm about to lose my job, I think. And so I buy the Wi-Fi on the plane, which I never do because I'm a poor assistant coach. I'm on the plane. I'm losing my mind. I'm pulling my hair out, which was already falling out at the time. And I've got, I'm texting back and forth with my wife. I'm now calling Braden. I'm texting Braden Bailey, who was a good recruit that we had committed. I'm texting just anybody, all the recruits, anybody, just so before they hear it, you know, I wanted them to hear it from us. And as soon as I land, I already open up my phone and see on Twitter that it's all over ESPN Waco, which I guess it got leaked to David Smoke somehow. That was crazy that it got leaked that fast. But so that was rough that week. I was walking around probably about what Donald Trump feels like right now. I was walking around like I'm this guy that's the coach there, but I don't know if he is or not, right? And so that's what was going on. And I had people coming up saying they're sorry, and I'm thinking it's like a funeral for me out there. The best conversation I remember having, I sat down and had lunch with Jim Ahern, and that was the most positive conversation I had, and that kind of gave me some light on the whole thing. And long story short, got back to town, and Priest tell me Coach McGraw's coming to town. He's going to be here to interview. I guess you'd call an interview. They basically it was like a recruiting trip for you. So you come in the door, and I talked to you there that day. I saw you for probably, I don't know, 5 minutes. And then you left. And I didn't know what to think, because here comes Coach McGraw, who I knew, but not very well. I mean, and I knew you were going to have a boatload of applicants and people already calling, and I didn't even know if you might already even have a former player or somebody that you might have in mind to be your assistant. And fortunately, I don't know how it happened, but I know Coach Priest had called you, and you might tell that story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm home that evening. After I left you that day, I verbally told Ian McCaw that I would love to have the job. It'd be fantastic. He put me on a plane. I'm flying back to actually Tuscaloosa is where I was at the time, and get a call from Greg Priest. Said, "Hey, Coach, Ian McCaw just told me you're gonna take the job. Fantastic, that's great. What do you think you'll do for an assistant coach?" And I said, "Well, I'll just keep Ryan Blagg, won't I? I mean, seems like, is there a reason I shouldn't keep Ryan Blagg?" And he goes, "No. Ryan's perfect. It's just that his wife is 8 months pregnant. He thinks he's out on the street without a job now. And so I think I called or texted you and said, hey, Ryan, love to have you on the staff. Let's do this.
Yeah, I remember I got that. You called me, and it was actually, I was Sunday afternoon. I was doing camp registration for our golf camp when you called me. So that was that, because it would have sucked that week without knowing if I had a job or not. And fortunately, I was very lucky because that only lasted like 7 days. That was from the moment you came to town to when that happened was about 7 days. And most coaching searches, you know, they go months, right? And so that was really fortunate for me. And so that's what started our time together at Baylor.
Right. And I remember that summer, I made a conscious effort that I was going to recruit in Texas. And I told you, I'm not leaving the state for a year. I'm just going to recruit in Texas. That's period. Now, we may not get the players we need or want, but we're going to start here. And I don't want you recruiting this summer. I want you taking care of all the stuff in the office and being at home in the evenings with Lindsay. She's pregnant. She's getting ready to have a baby. Let's not have you on the road when she goes into labor. And so you like that. That was good. You remember that?
And yeah. And what's crazy about that is I don't know if you changed and that was something new for you, because the legend of Mike McGraw that I always heard was, you know, he's carved out of Mike Holder. And Mike Holder is this guy that we're going to recruit on Christmas Day. You know, I know the Hepler story, you know, all the stories from Bruce Hepler and all that. And so that's what I was anticipating. I was anticipating and I was ready for it. I was just happy to have my job. I was ready for it. And I think Lindsay was ready for it. She was happy to have that I had the job there. But that was a pleasant surprise because whether you were your whole life or you changed to be, but family all of a sudden was very important. And that's something that I can truly say that was huge for me. And that's something now, me being a head coach, which we can talk about a little bit later, is something that I'm doing. I just know how important family is. And for my assistant coach, Coach Warnicki, I'm the same way. I want to constantly be aware that he has a family too. And that's the most important thing in his life.
Yeah. You know, Mike Holder was a very driven individual, and he saw me as I guess a man without, well, I had a wife, but I didn't have any children. So let's go work. And I did recruit on Miami Beach on Christmas Day a lot. So, but that's neither here nor there. I definitely wanted you to be with Lindsay as she approached her day to give birth to your son, Cooper, who's now 6, a little over 6, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, so our time together was really good at Baylor. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what I learned from you first. And then I'm going to bring Mikkel in here to kind of transition into some other things. So Mikkel, are you ready? Are you teed up and ready? He's ready. Okay. Well, some of the things that you and I worked very diligently on was 1, recruiting the state of Texas, 2, fundraising to try to build a new facility, 3, actually building the new facility. And I think that was and building a team. So Greg Priest had left a really competitive team. We were trying to take it even a little bit higher because his teams were always competitive, but
Sure.
We just thought we could do even more. And so that was what we worked alongside together on a daily basis. And I will toot my own horn here. You beat me to work only 1 day in 6 years. Now, can you remember what day that was?
This is really tooting the horn here.
Thank you. I've got to do a little bit of that.
Mikkel, take note of this. He did. He, you know, Coach McGraw, everybody that knows Coach McGraw knows that he gets up earlier than the Roosters do, right? And he's up extremely early. He's normally at the office, I'd say in the 5s, right? He's always in there in the 5 a.m. time. And one time I beat him to work on a day that he was actually coming to work. And, you know, because sometimes he's out of town, right? So, and it just so happened the only time I beat him, I pull up in the parking lot. I'm walking to the front door, and then Coach McGraw pulls in right behind me. But the only thing is he came from the Woodlands, Texas. He didn't come from his house that night. So he had driven for 3 hours and then still almost beat me to work. Now that may sound me like I'm this lazy piece of crap or whatever, but it was about 7:55 when I was walking up to the door, and he probably left the Woodlands at 4:30 or so, something like that.
Okay. Well, I wanted to put that on the record just so we have it there just to deal with. But
I'm 3.5 months in, and I've already tied you Coach Blagg.
One time. Good for you.
I have beaten him one time. He doesn't want to give me credit for it, but all I can say is I was here. It was in the sixes some point in time, and I was running out. I was getting a run in as the only way I could get a run in the morning. I went to the office. As I'm running out, Coach McGraw is pulling in, and I'm just hands over my head. I'm celebrating. I'm yelling at him. He's shaking his head. You're not getting this one. You're not claiming this one.
I had gotten here an hour and a half earlier and needed a cup of coffee, and I drove to 7-Eleven and came back.
I knew that's what he was going to say, because that was his standard go-to. That, you got a donor who buys a coffee machine out there, and maybe he's going to listen to this at the facility, and Coach McGraw still drives to 7-Eleven to get that crap coffee down the street.
It sounds like a lie to me, just to cover up this perfect record he's got.
Well, anyway, we'll move on, gentlemen. We'll move on. So, Ryan, I just wanted to talk about, because this is important for coaches out there to realize, especially head coaches, to realize you hire a really good assistant for a reason. You hire a guy as smart or smarter than you for a reason. You hire a guy who works really, really hard for a reason. And it's because you want the program to be as good as it can be. So I didn't hire you. I accepted you. You were already here at Baylor. Greg Priest had hired you. But I think I learned more about player development from you than I had in all the years I'd coached before. Now, it's not like every idea you came up with was revolutionary or different, but it was just, it was a different approach. I really love what you did with player development. Charting courses and our pre-round and practice rounds before tournaments. I think all that I knew before, I think you helped me actually streamline that. And it was better than it had ever been. And I'm better now than I've ever been at analyzing green complexes to help players make better approach shots in a tournament. I'm much better at that. There's an obvious separation between a veteran coach and the 18 to 22-year-old, age class, because I get older. They don't get any older. They're always the same age. And you helped me understand the value of, coach, you don't have to like their music or like their pop culture or the things that they're interested in, but you have to know what they are. Because if you don't know what they are, you don't know where these kids are coming from. And I think I'd lost touch with that a lot. So you need to know who their influences are and who is pouring into their lives. And so I wasn't doing a very good job of that. So those are just a few of the things I think you taught me. But what I also want to highlight are the qualities that make you a great coach. One, you're easily the most efficient person I've ever been around. Efficient meaning if there's a list of 8 things, all 8 get done. If it means you have to almost die getting the 8th one done, you do it. Now, computers, you were pedestrian. You could work through a computer, but you slam your fist down on the desk, you yell a cuss word, get really upset. My new assistant coach, Mikkel, he's a millennial. He cranks out a computer assignment like he was standing still. It's the most amazingly easy thing when he does it.
I am going to defend myself here. I'm not bad at computers. I just can't teach an IT class like maybe Mikkel can. I mean, like he is from that millennial generation.
I cannot either. I mean, I don't want to be a good IT guy. I want to be a good coach. I'm 28, so it's easy.
You want to be a good coach, but part of your job as an assistant coach is the IT guy. Okay.
Yeah, it's just you keep on saying how good at computers I am. It's just I'm 28. I mean, my high school we had computers. That's how we did school, and it's just second nature.
When I give you a computer assignment, it's done. Ryan, he'd be working at it, but really upset and frustrated and angry. And so anyway, that was your one weakness, Ryan.
I'm just telling you, if you hand any of our players right now, they could do what I can do on a computer. They can do it on an iPad or an iPad.
Are they coaching?
And they just got it done.
They're not coaching. All right, so I'll move on to the next thing. Your work ethic, second to none. You get in there every day and it's nonstop work. How can we make the program better? Your brains. You're really a smart guy. People don't give you credit for that because you're fun-loving and you got a great sense of humor and all that. But you are really smart. People don't know that about you until they get to know you. Your personality and your sense of humor, off the charts, really good. Extremely competitive, and obviously a very organized guy. So those are the qualities I think that make you a great coach. I've outlined the things I think you taught me. And so I'm a better coach because we spent time together. So,
well, I appreciate you saying that. Some of that stuff I take pride in trying to do. I hope it comes across as that's the way I am. And some of that stuff, the fact that you learned a lot from me on player development. I mean, I feel like I learned more from you on player development, with your history and experience of coaching All-Americans and now, you know, major champion winners and PGA Tour players. Yeah, so maybe that was kind of hand in hand there of, you know, we just both had two different styles, and then I learned yours and you learned mine. I mean, now I'm using yours, and I guess you're using part of mine, right? And
Absolutely. And go ahead.
I think that's what makes when two coaches make a good team, is they kind of take what's positive from both of them and learn from it and try to work on their weaknesses.
On the same note, Mikkel, you sat in my office yesterday as I was getting ready to leave and go to the golf course, and you had some work to do in the office. And what was the one thing you said that you wanted to do over time here at Baylor?
I asked you, I want your feedback, and I want to become a better coach from being here.
Yeah, you wanted to learn from me. You want my feedback. I want the same from you. So I think that's a really good lesson to learn. I didn't go into this thinking, well, I'm the experienced coach, and Ryan Blagg, you'll listen to everything I say. It's like, I didn't do that. And because I didn't do that, I was able to pick from and learn a lot from you as a coach that you already knew.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's something else that I learned from our time together is, one, that it was really impressive that you didn't have an ego and that you were okay with this assistant coach who's only been coaching for so many years telling you his thoughts. And sometimes they might have been wrong. I'm sure they were most of the time, but you always listened and never took offense if I disagreed with you. And that's kind of what, whenever I was, you know, I remember talking to you when I was looking for an assistant coach here. That's one of the things I wanted. I wanted a guy to step up. I don't want him to be a yes man to me. I want him to be able to tell me, you know, his thoughts and views. And I'm either going to think they're great ideas, or I'll say, well, I like my idea better. Let's go that way. And so that's something that's really helped me out here working with my assistant coach Warnke. And then, you know, some other things that kind of help me now that I thought would help me in the future, but now that, even though I've only been a head coach here at Louisville for since June, some of the things that you do on a daily basis that, I mean, honestly, I've tried to do, and I just don't know how you have the discipline. It's crazy. You're the most disciplined person I've ever been around in my entire life. And almost to a fault, you're most disciplined. You know, I think sometimes it could be negative, but most of the time it's positive.
It does work against me occasionally, but it's funny you would say that because, and by the way, I do have an ego, and my feelings get hurt just like you and everybody else. But I'm also aware during that entire time that if I'll just stop and listen, he's probably going to say something that makes sense or that works for me. I'm just glad that I was able to take some stuff from you, and you were able to use some things now that maybe we learned together or you learned from me. So
I'll tell you what I'm doing now. You'd be so proud of this.
Yep.
I'm writing down a journal now.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I'm not writing down what every single player in the field shot, or at what time Mikkel went to the bathroom like you did. But what I'm writing down is actual stuff that we did at practice, things that worked that day at practice, things that didn't work, and if something important happened at practice, and then writing that down and then keeping those in my journal here in the desk and trying to do that. And I tell you, early on, also, I had to, when I stepped into this job, they, you know, because of COVID, which I'm sure we're going to get to in a second, I had to do a fundraiser a month and a half into my job here. And it was already scheduled. And so having the experience that I had at Baylor, one, trying to raise the money for the building, but two, just running our fundraising tournaments and how you kind of let me run with that, and then, you know, let me kind of be the lead guy, like on the Hankomer. It really, really helps, because I felt a little lost doing this, but I would have been completely lost without that knowledge.
Well, but I think that speaks to your organizational skills too. Once you kind of look at something, you'll make sense of it, get organized, and move forward. And I knew you could do that. And quite frankly, I'd run enough fundraising tournaments that I was kind of ready for somebody else to do it as well. But I'm glad that you're able to use that. And, you know, you've hit the ground running. Let's go back a little bit to the 2017 NCAA. So we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but that's kind of the high water mark for Baylor golf. We've made it to match play, and you were standing there with Matthew Perrine when he made an amazing pitch shot on the last hole to send his match to a playoff. To talk a little bit about that, because that's a great memory for me.
Yeah, that spring was honestly, I view that spring as one unit. We had a great run. We got to be number one in the country. We had some ups, we had some downs. Downs being we played awful at conference, but then we'll go over to Stanford and win at their home golf course. Tied them for the win at their home golf course. Going into nationals with a head of steam, a young team, and played great that week through some rain delays and some other things, and ended up making match play and drawing Ryan Hibble and OU in the first round. And we knew their team very well, and we sat at the pairings deal, and we thought we got exactly what we wanted. We literally drew up our 5 matches, and I think we got all 5 of them, to be honest. I think exactly how it felt. It's crazy. So either we had a bad plan or it was or whatever, but it worked, and we got it. And yeah, I was walking with Matthew Prine, which I did almost that entire year after the first 2 events of that year. And Matthew, incredible player, very coachable. For some reason, he had full trust in me, and we had a good thing going. He had, Coach, you probably remember, I don't know the numbers. I can't remember how many top 10s he had that year.
Well, after he had 11 in a row, after those first 2 tournaments were bad, and then you started walking with him, and he was a machine.
Yeah, he was cooking, and he turned an awful start of a season into an All-American season. And so we're at the national championship, and we get Brad Dalkey in the anchor match, which is actually where we wanted Matt, and we were back there, and things were going on ahead of us, and we had a huge. I think we're leading in all 4 to 5 matches, or all 5 matches after 9.
Through 11 holes, we led in all 5 matches.
Okay. Now, those matches, it was a little misleading because most of them were 1 up, maybe 2 up. It's not like we had a huge lead in any of them, so those can be turned on a dime. But unfortunately, some of them were. And so when we got to the final, we got up to 17T. It was tied 2-2. I guess our match was behind a little bit, or some of them already over. And Matthew was 2 down to Brad Dalkey on 17 at Rich Harvest Farms. And if anybody's ever been to Rich Harvest Farms, on number 17, that green is the hole is just, it's a hard golf hole. It's a long golf hole, and the green is not meant to receive shots with a, even with a 7 or 6 iron, whatever you're coming with there. It's kind of slants into you, and there's water short. And if you hit it over the green, it is in a downhill slope and long rough, and you probably can't keep that on the green. That may go in the water. It's just a hard golf shot to hit in there. And Dalkey dumps it in the water, and I get Matthew to hit it to the back fringe and get out of there with a win, and we go to 18, and we're 1 down, and we know the whole fate of it's on this hole. And that was actually a fun moment, even though there's all that pressure on Matthew and me. It was a fun moment because walking down that fairway, I looked at him and said, Matthew, this is why you came to Baylor. This is why you're here. This is what you dream of, right? You have national TV going. You're playing Brad Dalkey, who's one of the best players in college golf at the time. And let's just win this hole. Let's just make birdie. We know what we have to do. We just got to win the hole. Brad hits it in the front bunker in 2. And, Matthew hits it right of the green into it. Wasn't a good shot. He hit it way right. Brad dumps a bunker out shot out to about 15 feet. And Matthew has a bad line of rough over there and kind of gets his chip heavy, and he leaves it short of the green, just off the green. But it's only about, 12 to 14 feet from the hole, whereas Brad might have been 15 to 18 feet. So Brad's still away, and Brad putts and misses. And so we know the chip has to go in. And, I just look at Matthew, and Matthew was he smiled. He was happy. He was calm, collected, and excited that he had the opportunity to do this. Whereas most guys might have been, so nervous they would have had to change their pants after the round. Where Matthew, he just took it, and we talked about where we wanted to land it. He's hit the shot a ton of times. He landed it exactly on the spot, and it dribbled in right in the center of the cup. And that moment was awesome. We had the whole team behind the green, national TV, huge roar, everybody out there, and it's like, okay, let's go to the next tee. Now, from here on is where it didn't go very good, which Matthew ended up losing the next hole to Brad Dalkey, and we lost the match. But that moment was really cool. Just that excitement and getting to move on at the national championship like that to the next hole. And because I think some of the guys behind the green that have been there, they're like, Matthew's 2 down with 2 to go. This thing's over, right? And it wasn't over. And it turned out to be, you know, going to extra holes, and that's where our season ended. But that run was an awesome team, and that was a fun championship.
Well, and yes, for me too. I've had very few spring seasons any more enjoyable than that one. Just the fact that the team actually got to #1 in the country for 2 weeks, pretty incredible, and just good things, good times. But also, you were named the Jan Strickland Assistant Coach of the Year that year, which is a great honor, and one I thought you deserved the previous years, but you finally got it. And that led to what may be one of your best experiences in coaching, the Palmer Cup the following summer in France. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, you know, that's probably, that's an incredible experience for me. And it's a little different because I didn't recruit any of these guys, but I got to coach them. And, I coached with Coach Hibble, and that made it a fun week because Coach Hibble told me, I'm not his assistant captains. We're co-captains, and we're going to do everything equal that week. And, I got so much respect for Ryan Hibble at OU. He's such a good guy and a good coach, and how he handled that week was just awesome. He made it a great experience for me and my wife. And our team was, it was the first year that they did men and women in the Palmer Cup, right? And so that was a really cool thing. And what made it even cooler is we were going overseas to do battle on foreign soil, right? We were going to Evian, France, and side of the Evian women's tournament, and good golf course, really pretty. It's right there on the lake. And the team we had on the men's and women's side was just stupid. And they were just so talented. And I'm not saying the internationals weren't talented. It just seemed like it was just, our team was good. And especially, I think we might have been better on the women's side, although it's hard to say. We had girls out there like Lilia Vu and Lauren Stevenson, Andrea Lee, Kristen Gilman, Jennifer Kupcho, Dylan Kim, all these girls. I think all those girls but one are on the LPGA Tour right now, and I think some of them have wins. And they actually got us out to a huge lead. I mean, they destroyed the other girls, and then our men was just, I mean, all these names, Justin Suck, Colin Morikawa, Matthew Wolf, Davis Riley, Shintaro Ban, Brad Dalkey, Bo Shu, Chandler Phillips, Braden Thornberry, Sahith Thagala, and Stephen Franklin, and SM Lee was our squad. And I mean, those guys, I mean, we had thoroughbreds out there, right? And something that you always told me about your team is when you got a thoroughbred, you just get out of the way and let them run, right? And that's what you did at your Palmer Cup, because I'm sure here in a second you're going to tell me how good your Palmer Cup team was and how many majors they won and blah, 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 right?
Wait a second. Wait, don't. I wasn't going to do that. What I'm going to do is state some facts. Now,
before you state that, let me tell you what happened here, and then you can go on about your team here.
Gotcha.
So our team was fun because it's the men's and women's combo. You play alternate shot with the girls, and that was a different dynamic, trying to figure out how to pair things up, and best ball with the girls. And then we had singles matches, and we got out of there that week winning by, I think, 17 points. It was a slaughter. And me and Coach Hibble, all we did was let them have fun, and they did, and they knocked it out of the park. I mean, what do you do when you've got Wolf and Morikawa out there? You just say, go play, right? And that's what happened. And it was a fun time, and that's an experience that I hope someday I get to go back and do that as a head coach of the team. But just getting to do it as assistant captain or co-captain was just an incredible experience. And first time ever I felt like we were playing for our country, which in the U.S. we don't get to do that a lot. And we were representing our country over there, which was cool. And I'm excited this year, just the Palmer Cup that was rescheduled to December at Bay Hill. I'm going to go just because I've got a guy playing on the national team, Matthias Schmid. I'm going to go down there and watch it, and I'm excited. And I just think the Palmer Cup, I can't talk about enough of how cool the Palmer Cup is.
Yeah, I agree. It is truly it's one of the greatest things the Golf Coaches Association has ever done for college golf, to have the Palmer Cup. It was one of my best experiences I've ever had as a coach. I was the captain in 2007. And, oh, by the way, that Palmer Cup this year, we do have a Baylor Bear on there. That's Cooper Dossey, who's the third Baylor Bear, Ryan Baccia back in 2006, Kyle Jones in 2015, and now Cooper Dossey will be a Palmer Cupper this year. So that's great. But my Palmer Cup team, I'm just going to name the players. I'm only stating facts. There's not any editorializing going on here. 2007 U.S. Palmer Cup team, Dustin Johnson. And these dollar amounts are a couple months old. 63 million, 22 PGA Tour wins, a U.S. Open in 2016, FedEx Cup champion. Webb Simpson, $40 million, 7 tour events, U.S. Open 1912. Billy Horschel, $24 million, 5 tour events, FedEx Cup champ. Chris Kirk, $17 million, 4 tour events. Brian Harmon, $16 million, 2 tour victories. Luke List and Jamie Lovemark, both about $8 million, both have 2 Korn Ferry victories. And then Jonathan Moore, who is from Oklahoma State, has not had status to this point. But pretty good team. I know your team has the potential, and you've already got 1 major championship. And so you're on your way.
And I do think my team, I know for a fact, we won by more points. We won by 17.5 points. I think we won by 6 or 7.
Did you sweep the singles matches? Because we did. We won every match.
A crazy side note, you're right. Your team's better than mine right now.
So far.
A crazy side note that week, which everybody knows how good Victor Hovland is, somehow we held him pointless that week. And he played great. I just think that's just good coaching. That's what I'm gonna tell you. We had the right players paired against him every time.
Well, I will tell you this: between you and Ryan Hibble, you did the right thing. You knew you had thoroughbreds. You just let him run. Back in 2007, my assistant captain was John Canauro, who's now the head coach at Texas San Antonio. And I told John, I said, John, if you think we're going to coach this week, you are crazy. He said, I agree with you. He said, we got a great team, don't I? I said, yeah, we're going to get him in the right uniform, get him in the van, and get him fed and get him on the first tee in time. And if you do anything more than that, I'm going to be upset, because that's all we need to do. But we didn't win by as big a margin as you guys did. So
Thank you.
And Colin does have a major.
Thank you.
So the Palmer Cup, the Arnold Palmer Cup is what it's now been renamed, is actually an amazing, amazing experience. Any coach, even if you're not coaching, if you have a player, get there, watch it's a great experience. So we go back last spring, you and I had a team, was ranked about, I think we were ranked about 10th or 11th in the country. And then the pandemic hit. And so we all have to shift gears. And we know that there's a potential the season will be canceled. Then it was canceled. And all during this time, you're in the interview process to try to get the job at Louisville. So that was stressful, and trying to keep this team together. And then they canceled our season. And so now I'm not saying we've had a tough go, because a lot of people have had it a lot worse than you and I. But talk about that pandemic, getting hired at Louisville. And then I want you to tell us about your team. I want to know about your team. I don't know anything about it. Well, I know a little bit about them.
Yeah, so March 12th, that's the day the music died, right? Like Don McLean said, that was it. That's when college golf stopped. And, everybody around the country was dealing with this pandemic. And that was a hard day in college golf. Just the seniors and all that worked out for them, where they ended up getting next year. So after that happened, and we were trying to figure out what was next for the team. And I'd already gotten a phone call actually back in December from Louisville. I got a phone call from the women's golf coach here, and she had just asked me if I would be interested in the job. And I told her yes. We had been at the regional championship there 6 months earlier at ULGC, and where we actually finished third and made it to nationals. And I remember walking down the fairway with you there at ULGC thinking, these facilities are great. Like, this is a pretty good spot. Like, we didn't know anything about it. We just knew they were always a competitive program. And so that was what I kind of had in my mind, and that just kind of the town when we were there. And so whenever I started the interview process in February or March, I guess that was March. I think I did a phone interview in February and then started everything right after the COVID thing started. But it was a different kind of hiring process, because we had to do everything on Zoom calls. I didn't come to campus one time. And so I was fortunate to be able to come here for the regional championship that I had been here before. But to be honest, the process was handled incredible. A lot of Zoom calls, meeting a lot of staff and people here. And, I always told you that if I left, it had to be something special. And I wanted the same kind of environment that I feel that you have at Baylor, that being that it's a family environment with the administration. And, that fact that Mac Rhodes knows the athletes' names, he knows your golfers' names, and that's what I wanted. And I learned right away the administration here is family oriented. And, you know, Vince Tyre, our AD here at Louisville, I mean, he knows all my guys by first name. It just seems real similar to the administration there, and they have similar views and what they're trying to do. And it's all about the athlete and the family and all that's involved with that. And knowing the facilities and talking to them, it just seemed like a perfect fit for me and my family. And so I accepted the job, and that was exciting, but also it was, I mean, you remember that meeting, I could barely talk. I was crying so much telling the guys. It meant so much to me because those guys for 8 years, you know, Baylor was my life. And I had so many good experiences at Baylor. My son was born there. You know, I'd started a family there. You know, those guys that are on your team now, basically, you know, I coached every one of them. And you know, the Kyle Jones and even Mikkel, you know, I'd coached him and walked with him while he won golf tournaments. And I just had a lot of good experience at Baylor. So that was hard to know that portion of my life was ending, not knowing what would be next, other than I was headed to Louisville, Kentucky. And when I got here, to tell you a little bit about Louisville and the golf program, and honestly, it was a blessing. This is exactly where I needed to end up, and God works in mysterious ways. And I never would have thought that this is where I'd end up, and it's awesome. I mean, the facilities are great. My team is a great group of guys. They're very talented. They're very good, but they're also really good people, and I love them. And they're good students. And right now, I wish we were playing college golf. The ACC decided, I guess a month ago, that we weren't going to play fall golf for the ACC. We're going to start in the spring. And so that has been a little wrinkle in starting as a head coach, right? You have a whole semester of trying to motivate guys and keep them from getting depressed, and team practices and trying to prepare them for the spring. And, you know, my first speech to them was some stuff that I learned from you, I think. And basically I just told them, look, guys, you know, the day they canceled the season, I told them, guys, ever since I can remember, they have never handed out the national championship trophy in the fall. That sucker's handed out in June or the end of May every single year. And that's when we're going to play golf. We're going to play golf in the spring, and we're going to play good, and we're going to go and we're going to compete for national championship. And that's when they hand it out. They don't hand it out in October at some other tournament. And so that's what we got to do. And in the fall, we're going to, I told them the team that handles themselves the best in the fall is who's going to do the best in the spring. And so we just got to do what we can with this. And our guys are handling it very well. Right now, you know, I've got a couple of those thoroughbreds like we talked about on that Palmer Cup team. I've got Matthias Schmid, who is just a stud, and he's playing European AM right now. And he's leading by 4 through 6 holes right now, the final round of the European AM. He won it last year. He's on pace to win it again. Hopefully he can play well on the back nine, which on the back nine, he shot 29 twice this week on the back nine. It's crazy. Guy is playing great golf. And, you know, he wins that, he gets an exemption into the Open Championship. So that's pretty cool. And then, you know, the guys at home, they've played some GCA tournaments. John Murphy won the GCA event down in Atlanta. I had a guy Devin Morley finished 3rd there. I had Trevor Johnson finish 6th. I had Yuri finished 18th, Yuri Zuska. And I had another guy finish 40th. So they're playing some tournaments. And in town, I've had 2 course records set in the past 2 weeks. So I wish we were playing college golf right now, because it seems like all of our guys are kind of in the right spot and playing good golf right now. And, but we're not. So they're going to play amateur events, and we're going to do the best we can with it. And we actually have, the guys are playing in a GCA event here in Hebron, Kentucky, the Traditions Golf Course on Monday and Tuesday of this coming week. And I'll just hopefully get to go out there and watch them and stay out of the way and abide by NCAA rules. And
well, Ryan, thank you for your update on your team and that whole situation. And a couple things occurred to me when you got the job. One, you didn't have to go out and just kill it fundraising to get some facilities, because Mark Crabtree left you in a great position with respect to facilities. That place is amazing. And
Yes.
Number 2, he didn't leave the cupboard empty with respect to players. I knew you had a good team, and you knew it too. But there's also another dynamic involved in coaching. Just because you have talented players doesn't mean you're going to have a great team. So that's where coaching does come into play. And hopefully, I want to wish you the best of luck as you go through the season, because it's your first as a head coach, and 2, because it's not the start that you would have asked for. But you do have a good team, great facilities, and I think you're well on your way. So Thanks for that update. I'm thankful you came on the podcast today. I'm not through with you yet, so hang in there. But before we shut down, Mikkel, do you have anything else for him before we go into the speed round?
I'm really looking forward to the speed round, but I do want to say I've known Coach Blagg since 2012, since he came to Baylor, and you've been the same person the entire way, and you're a great coach. And I think I speak for everybody at Baylor when I say that we all root for you guys up there, and when we see you guys in the spring, we're going to root a little bit for Louisville as well.
Unless you're in the field, Ryan.
I appreciate you saying that. Me and Mikkel, I had some good times. I walked with him quite a bit, watch him play very good golf and watch him play some bad golf. So that's kind of what you go through with when you're coaching a kid, right? You go through the highs and lows. And Mikkel that's why he's such a good coach, right? I mean, he's a great person, and he learned a lot in his career, and now he killed it at Texas Tech, and he's killing it there. I know y'all are going to do great this year.
Okay, so Ryan, thank you for everything you've added to our podcast today, but I do want to do a speed round with you, so are you ready for this?
Let's try to do it.
Okay. Most embarrassing moment on a golf course?
I mean, I guess you got it when I shanked it at a Hooters event, like you let up, and I actually hit a Coca-Cola trailer out there to the right of a par 3. It hit the trailer, 2 or 3 people trying to get Cokes, bounced off of it. I made par, still top 10 that week, but I hit the Coke trailer.
Okay. Favorite Tony Romo golf moment?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean, I was in awe of that guy as a quarterback. I mean, it wasn't my least favorite. I can tell you that was losing money to him. So I don't have a favorite other than that. I mean, he's a great guy. That's why everybody loves him as an announcer. He just speaks what's on his mind. He's a good dude and a good football player.
Perfect. Lowest round in competition?
Lowest round of competition, unfortunately, was 65. I shot 62 in a pro-am, but I don't know if that counts. So 65.
Okay.
With a shank or without a shank?
The 62 was shankless. That's probably how I got the 62.
Is that a term? Shankless?
Shankless.
Okay. Classic country or 90s rock?
Oh, my. Well, I know you like George Jones, and I think that's what you call classic country, but that's terrible. I mean, I like country, and George Strait is classic country, and that's hard to beat. So, God, I got to go with 90s rock.
Okay. Top mini tour player you ever played with? Best one you ever played with?
Well, Mark Walker's the best mini tour player I ever played with, but the best player I ever played with while on the mini tours was by far Bubba Watson. I mean, he had no business on a mini tour, and he was out there. No, he hit it by me by 60 yards off the first hole. I asked him, did you hit that solid? Yeah, I hit it solid. I stepped it. That's, no rangefinders back then. 60 yards past me. And then to interrupt the speed round on number 9, par 5, we both hit drivers. I had hybrid in, he had 9-iron in. I quickly went home to the hotel room that night, told Craig Lyle, who I was staying with, who ended up playing on tour. I told him, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to beat this guy, and he's going to win a major. And I was right about both those things.
No, he won 2 majors. You were wrong.
I was wrong. Dang it. Okay. That's right.
Favorite moment as a Baylor coach?
Matthew Perrine chipping in. No question. That was favorite moment, but I got to say a close second was Cooper Dossey's captain's speech. I don't know when that happened. Last year.
January 24th, 2020.
There he is, Rain Man in effect. He threw it out right at us right there. January 24th, 2020, that speech was a proud moment for me. And I told his mom that. I told Cooper that. Cooper had grown so much. And without going into a long spiel, part of our, jobs as a coach is let these guys grow as young men. And coming as a freshman, he was borderline a mess. And that was a really mature, cool moment as a captain. That was really cool.
It's the top speech I've ever heard from a player that was not announced. He just said, Coach, can I have an opportunity to speak? I love that. That's your favorite moment. Question. It's great. And then favorite Coach McGraw quirk, and then we're done.
Jeez. I mean, I think I got a ton of those. I don't know if can we talk for a while on that? I think your favorite Coach McGraw quirk is the fact that you eat so fast. I think that's probably your favorite. My favorite probably is that your memory is just stupid, right? I mean, I think all the players, you're kind of let's bring in the freak show, right? We haul him in and he sits down and then we say, okay, well, who won the 1952 Masters, Coach McGraw?
The 52 Masters? Sam Snead.
Right.
Ben Hogan shot a final round 79, worst round he played at Augusta.
Right. And then some kid from the other side of the room will yell, Coach McGraw, who won the 1968 Masters?
That was Bob Golby. Roberto DiVincenzo signed an incorrect scorecard, and Bob Golby won.
Right. And so that probably is my most favorite because that's the most impressive. The eating thing is, I don't know if that's talent. I don't know what that is, but I can tell you my most memorable eating moment of your speed was at Olympia Fields. And it's when you had, they bring out the milkshake and they bring out the tall glass, and then they bring out the actual sterling silver half left of it, right? So it's like 1.5 milkshakes. And you down that thing, of course it's vanilla because you never do any other flavors, but vanilla milkshake. You down that thing in the time of what, forgive me for saying this, in college I watched some guys chug beers as fast. I think you would have beat them. I think if a beer chugging guy had it, I think you down a frozen milkshake in that length of time. And one, science doesn't make sense. And two, I don't know how you pulled it off. But that was impressive. And I think that if you ask the guys today, if you go ask Cooper and some of those guys, and Cooper was there as a freshman, I believe.
He was a freshman.
Yeah, I think he'll remember that too. So that's unbelievable.
All right. Well, there are some quirks there for sure. Okay, Ryan, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I have one thing to leave you with, and that is, I know you hired a high school golf coach from the state of Texas, but I've got your photo and his photo at every highway entrance into the state and at every major airport, and they won't be allowing you back. So you can try, but you're not coming to Texas. Okay, you got that?
We're trying as hard as we can to recruit down there. And as you know, it's 72 and sunny every day here and the wind doesn't blow. So just for anybody from Texas listening, that's the weather we got up here in Louisville, Kentucky.
Well, aren't you the lucky guy? That's great.
I know. I thought I was in San Diego the first day I moved out here, but it's not. It's Louisville, Kentucky.
Perfect. Well, Ryan, thanks again. Best of luck as you continue the off season. We're getting ready to leave to go to our first tournament. So we'll be thinking about you when we're there, and hope to run into you this spring at a tournament.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'm pulling for you guys down there at Colonial. I'll be watching, and I'm so glad that y'all are playing college golf because I think that's huge for us. If you guys play college golf in the fall, by God, I think we can play it in the spring. So
I agree, totally.
All right, good luck, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks again to Ryan Blagg, my former assistant coach and one of the guys I consider to be one of the finest coaches in the business today. Collegiate golf is better because of Ryan Blagg, and I think if you listen to today's podcast, you'll know why. And I'm just thankful that Ryan is my friend, my colleague, and certainly he's been a part of my journey, so I'm thankful for that as well. Thank you, Ryan.